Welcome back to IllumiNation Network, everyone. Joining us today is Tanuj from Unveiling The Matrix. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tanuj.
The Matrix on that.
Oh, the Matrix on
thank
Matrix
you for having me.
Absolutely. Sorry about that little hiccup there. So
No
what exactly do you do in the Matrix Unveiled?
So we are a variety of things. We are a school. So I have a school of mysticism, which recently launched. And we are also a YouTube channel and a website. And basically, I am a content creator, a spiritual life coach, a spiritual guide, a mentor, someone that, talks to people one-on-one. I also create courses, and I've created, hundreds of videos on YouTube and Instagram to basically teach people about the matrix, teach people about their spirituality, about their energy fields, about how to master their energy fields, discover their life purpose, unlock their soul's mission, heal themselves from the traumas of the world, and then to understand what exactly they're in this reality, understand exactly what the Maya is. We heard the word Maya and spirituality a lot, but I break it down in a different way that I don't think that has been broken down in a long time. And we talk about the holographic reality. We talk about the nature of light. We talk about all of these very, very esoteric things, and on and on and on. So, yeah.
Definitely, that's a lot to cover, and so much of our world being, systems that have just continuously built and built to the point where we have, to where it feels like it's out of hand. There's so much wisdom to accumulate and to understand for us to really to know how to navigate this world, how to find our highest selves, how to utilize our talents to have the best impact that we could possibly have. And so much of this reality feels like a fugazi. And there's also so many ascended masters who speak about various esoteric practices, tools, techniques to manifest reality in a way that seems to play on how there's like edges to this reality, and we can peer through those edges and really tap into what's available.
Yeah, it's definitely super confusing. For the word that we use is neophyte. Okay, there's a lot of language that people have to kind of get familiar with, and that's something that I break down a lot. Not too much in the videos. I do break it down on YouTube, but I break it down a lot more in my school, where I really have like a whole curriculum of information to teach people. But basically, you come in as a neophyte, and a neophyte is a word that describes someone as a complete beginner, a complete unawakened being, or just completely new to everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
They're living their ordinary life, which for me and you, I'm sure it feels like millions of miles away, ordinary life.
Mm-hmm. So
right?
it's essentially the process of the computer being like, Neo, you're asleep.
Yes. That's actually a funny analogy. And the word neophyte has been a very, very ancient word. It's not related to the Matrix, but the Matrix movie has a lot of truths to it. And I actually, for people wondering, I didn't base my channel off the Matrix movie. I understood that it was a Matrix in a different way. And then I was like, this movie also has some correlations too, but the movie also has incorrect information as well. So it's a tricky subject. But the neophyte is someone that comes in just as the physical being. You're just this physical body, and you're kind of like, I think I might have an intuition. I think I might have some weird experiences going on. I think I might have some meditation experiences, or I want to learn about meditation. I want to learn. And then from there, the path begins and the world opens up, and you realize what you're really in is not what you thought at all.
And so
you throw away
essentially
everything you ever thought.
that neophyte is starting to chase the white rabbit.
Yes, starting to chase the white rabbit, starting to see the holes in the plot and in the game, and you really start to see things that just blow your mind. I mean, and it's started to ramp up. I have to say this honestly, since 2020, not just in the world, but in my own personal experience, there has been a ramping up of the craziness and the metaphysical that's been going on. It's significantly increased. It's kind of like seismic activity. It's kind of like bumping around, and then one day it just like spikes, and there's a huge spike, and then there's just huge spikes after. And that's like the spiritual realms communicating with us.
Right.
And just yesterday, I had this crazy experience where I was working with energy. And by the way, this is one of the things that I talk about. The government is fully aware of everything that's going on. Okay.
Right.
The NSA and the CIA and Washington, D.C. and the secret government, all this stuff, they're fully aware. They have programs, they have files, they have databases, they have interdimensional contact. They have all of this up the wazoo. They've been researching this since probably, I don't even know, for maybe hundreds of years, since the American government was first discovered.
And they've got talented people, talented psychics sitting in rooms with agents saying like, I see the vision. I see what's on the other side of the world right now. This is the intel.
But not only that, they have agents that get deployed when there are other psychics or energy users or magicians. There's many words that you could call it, depending on what you're practicing. I teach people magic. I teach people energy work. I teach people reality creation. And so when you start to like tap into this stuff and you start getting really good with it, you start to build a lot of energy, a lot of light, a lot of life force. And so if you're outside and you're working hard, and you're really pushing the envelope of what's possible energetically, and you're really pushing the veil, you start to attract attention. So I posted yesterday, I went to the beach to kind of just chill out and relax. And I went and I was trying to clear the energy of the space around me, of the beach, because I had intuitively sensed that the Chesapeake Bay Spirit, that's where I was at. The Chesapeake Bay is a bay in Maryland, which is about 20 minutes away from an NSA base. Like the biggest NSA base in the entire country is there. Okay. And so I'm communicating with the spirit, and she's not in a good mood. She's in a very negative energy. She's telling me this. She's like, you humans have completely destroyed this body of water. It's become complete trash. Just leave, like get out. That's what she was telling me. So I asked her, I said, is there anything that I can do personally in order to try to help you, in order to try to fix the energy? And I came up with an idea. I was going to take all of this electromagnetic smog. One of the things that happens is you start to go to see energy fields, kind of like how people can read auras. So I could see the smog and the electromagnetic fields in the bay. And what I was doing is I was taking the energy fields and I was dragging them up. I was picking them up with my mind and my aura and my energy, and I was moving them up to the sky. I was basically like kind of helping her shed baggage and dirt that humans had basically accrued.
It sounds like you were helping create spaciousness as well.
Exactly. Like I was helping her breathe, basically. She couldn't breathe. She felt like she was being drowned in all of this dense energy. So I start doing this and I start really getting into it. I'm really like helping. I can see like the clouds are changing. It starts to get really, really gray because all that negative energy that's in the water starts going up to those clouds. And I'm like, the clouds can take care of it. They'll just recycle it into something new. Within 10 minutes of me getting really connected and really pushing the energy up, a black military chopper comes flying behind me, right above me, stops right above my head. Now, it's not flying high. It's flying extremely low. It's flying low enough to the point where it could probably hit a tree. So it flies right next to me, and I'm the only one on the beach. Everyone else is way farther downstream. They're like a solid mile away. I'm the only one over here. It flies, it cuts right through the bay, and then it does a sharp turn. As soon as it came out, I knew exactly what was happening. I knew that they had sensed with their equipment and their technology that I was messing with the energy fields. They did a turn, they did a sharp turn, and they came over me again, and they acted as if they were gonna land right where I was, but then they just took off. And I'm like, those dudes are weaponized. They probably have guns in their chopper. And they could have probably shot me if they wanted to. Man,
that is crazy. And they were just kind of flexing on you too. They just showed up to be like, hey, we know what you're doing.
Oh, they were pissed.
Yeah. Oh man, they
were pissed. They didn't like me messing with it.
And so when you perceive the energy of this lake, you're not necessarily perceiving it with your eyeballs and like visionary senses, but more so like the mind's eye, sensing it through feeling and using that to kind of intuit what it would look like physically.
No, it actually does come up, and I actually do see it with my eyes. I actually do
Okay.
see the colors. So the first thing that happens, and this is what I talk about in school a lot, is that the first kinds of senses you get are the intuitive feelings, and you kind of sense where things are, and you can kind of, map things. It's kind of like an echolocation device. But
That's a
as
good
you
way to
get
describe
more and
that.
more pronounced, huh?
I was saying that's a good way to describe that echolocation.
Oh yeah. So as you get more and more pronounced with your skills, and as you get more and more developed with your sensitivity, it starts to bleed into your other senses as well. Your senses start to basically become upgraded. It's like a camera getting a software update.
Yeah.
So your eyes get the software update, and they start to see new colors, new frequencies. And so even yesterday I was like, I don't usually see smog in the way that I'm seeing it today. So it looks like I got an update. And it's like I got an update as I was training. And they come in, it's just like how you get downloads when you have a channeled message, or it's the same thing, but it happens for your body. So your body gets more tuned to the energy so it can see it better. So I literally see colors and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
That is amazing. And so what other aspects do you cover in your School of Mysticism? What other techniques, talents, and tools?
So one of the base skills, I obviously teach meditation and meditation training. I teach astral projection, lucid dreaming, remote viewing, psychic scanning, auric reading, energy healing, aerokinesis and psychokinesis, which is the ability to basically move energy fields, which is what I was doing. I teach a lot of different advanced abilities, so dream walking and dimensional traveling, so learning how to move in dimensions and create systems and create different energy spheres and different energy constructs. There's also aspects that we're going to be diving into in the future about ritual magic and how to manifest certain things using ritual energies, and setting up altars and setting up spaces and contacting. I also teach about communicating with different entities, whether they be gods, whether they be angels, whether they be demons or spirits, all of them. And I teach people how to basically make sure that they have alliances with the ones that they want, and then they stay away from the ones that they don't want.
Definitely.
And they have protection, so warding. Basically, all subjects in the occult and the metaphysical is what we are teaching at the school.
Yeah.
So everything.
Man, that's a lot of topics to cover.
And as my knowledge base, that's the thing. Like, as my knowledge base expands and as I continue researching, this is what I do full time. So I spend all of my time and energy basically researching, studying, meditating, learning from the greats, from the other really, really advanced practitioners and meditators and magicians and whatnot. And I study their techniques, and then I learn it and I implement it. I try it out, and then I am ready to teach it when I feel I'm ready to teach it. I put it out there in my own unique way. So I modify certain things, but there's a lot of different topics that we're covering for sure.
Definitely. And so for those in my audience who may not be familiar with a lot of these concepts, or much less how these concepts actually work, how would you say that your journey into this began?
Yeah, so it's definitely something that if you're just hearing this for the first time, it's going to be a lot, I understand, but you're also being pulled into a rabbit hole. So that's the thing that we're doing here, is like you find it and it pulls you in. It's kind of a choice. You don't have to get pulled in, but if you do, you're jumping headfirst into a new world, into a new discovery of reality. And as I said before, you do have to let go of all of your preconceived ideas. So you have to let go of the idea that people can't change physical reality with their mind, because it's true. You can. And there's demonstration after demonstration after demonstration that I will basically show to you in order to drill it into your mind that it's possible. And then you will do it after yourself, after you learn the techniques, and it will drill it into your mind that it's possible. And once one thing becomes impossible, you're like, oh, all of these things are possible.
Right. And so many people in the world have been looking for the red pill their whole life. They want to understand these things. They know that it's not just rumor. They know that it's not just myth. And all it takes is a good teacher to find out how to start doing these things.
The thing is that this is more real and more crazy. This world is more crazy than anything you could watch on TV. It's more crazy. My experiences have been more crazy than the stuff I watch on TV. I'm like, that's boring. My life is crazier than that.
Yeah. And so much of current society has almost been programmed by the systems that we are living in terms of society, economics, and things, to where we accept this simplified reality. We accept that life is just boring. You go to work, you pay your bills, and you die. And there's just so much more to it. And in just reading a few older books or the Bible, for example, people can tap in and see that things weren't always this simple. And once they start seeing that there is more to it, it's a whole rabbit hole, just like you're saying.
Yeah. If you read the book of Enoch, it talks a lot about the giants, and it talks a lot about the Nephilim and the fallen angels. And those are real too. You can communicate with them if you have access. They speak back. I've communicated with the fallen angels. They're still here, but that's another topic for another time, and I talk about that as well. But yeah, there's all kinds of mythical creatures that are actually roaming around. One of the things that people don't realize is that our oceans are actually extremely mysterious, and we barely have scratched the surface in any of them. So if you have some scientist or somebody telling you that we know everything about this world, we don't. We don't even know 1%. And the 1% that we do is wrong. So they don't know jack shit.
We only know about 1% of human history too.
Yeah. So a lot of it has been lied. A lot of it has been factually just not correctly described. If you study Sumeria, if you study Mesopotamia, Egypt, and some of these older civilizations, and even Moses and Jerusalem and all that kind of stuff, you will find a lot of secrets and a lot of magic. You have to trace the magic back, which is one thing that I've been doing, has been tracing the magic back throughout the eons to figure out what's really going on here.
Yeah, and books like the Bible, for example, are just coded mystic messages, just teaching people how to tap into this Christ consciousness. And, there are many other books for tapping into other forms of consciousness, different wisdoms bestowed upon us through experienced lives, ascended masters and whatnot.
There is Gnostic wisdom. So there was a branch of Christianity called Gnosticism, which was basically one of the earliest forms of Christianity, where it was like the Gnostics were the disciples of Christ. I do believe that's correct. And they carried the ancient wisdom. They carried the mystical knowledge. So these were actual mystics. These weren't just worshipers of Christ. They were actual students of Christ. And whether or not Yeshua actually existed, I'm pretty sure he did. But they actually could perform miracles as well. And what they're trying to explain is that it's not limited to one being, and it's not even about the miracle, but it is about the fact that you have ability to create your reality and to manifest what you want, and to not get stuck in what I consider and what I call the Matrix hive mind, which is what I've called it, which is the third dimensional reality, where you walk around and it's like everybody's in a sleep state. They're completely asleep.
They believe the reality that's been placed before them.
And they believe the fear, and they believe, and it's not just, okay, it's a physical reality, but it's degraded worse than that. It's become, now we're in fear 24/7. Now we're scared of the CV. Now we're scared of this fake thing that's going on, and we're scared of everything. We're scared of the air. We're scared of touching people. We're scared of holding people. We're scared of love. So
we're scared to meet strangers.
Yeah. I've seen that actually happen, where, if you go out and you just approach people and you just talk to people just to be like a loving spirit and be friendly, people are, sometimes they'll be friendly, but sometimes they're like, what if you have the CV, bro? Are you vaccinated?
Yeah, and it's just so inhumanizing to see our fellow man as a walking disease.
It is extremely, and this is not a disease of the physical. I want people to get that. It is a disease of the spiritual. Like, yes, there is a disease. Technically, they're not lying to you. There is a disease that's been going on. It's just not the way that you think it is. It's an energetic disease.
Mhm. And so much of our society, you know, in 2008, our political legislation changed the books, which changed our perception of history, our perception of how things function. And there have been so many instances of this throughout history, since Babylon, since Mesopotamia, since Rome, that our whole perception of how things work is just simplified to the point where there's no excitement anymore. And even the art of conversation is going to die as we turn to more digital means of communication. But one of the biggest aspects of the Matrix that I feel is an intentional deception is in my work of astrology. Astrology is seen with such a disdain nowadays because it isn't perceived as being very deep. It isn't perceived as being the great tool of understanding self and predicting future events as it actually is. And this is largely because the system that we use here today in the West was proposed by by Roman rule. It was proposed to create a calendar system, and this calendar system was intended to help grow the empire by helping us plan planting seasons and things like that. And just like October should be the 8th month, but because we included 2 months for Julius Caesar and Augustus, now it's the 10th month, and it doesn't make any sense with the actual Latin roots of it. But the system I follow is called true sidereal astrology. It's the night sky system, and this is exactly how astrology was done for thousands of years, was looking at the sky, observing the things that are changing around us, and noting it throughout thousands of years to the point where we can actually predict it as we see it happening. And this current system doesn't account for many things in science, like the relative size of the constellations or the precession of equinox, to where the modern system is nearly 30 degrees off from reality. And that's why people can't connect to it anymore. And then you see the people who do use it, a lot of times are using it as a term, as a form of projection to say, oh, that's just how I am. I'm not going to change. But that's who we are as beings. We are capable of changing our reality through conscious awareness. And that to me is one of the most infuriating aspects of the Matrix, deceiving us from this deeper, more exciting reality.
Yeah, I would say you're right about that. It's kind of like, it's a mind, and the fact that they've jumbled a lot of the information and scattered it and created false realities around it. So it's definitely a problem. And astrology is a map. This is not guesswork. This is not la la stuff. This is a map. It's a scientific map of the stars. That's what it is. It's like, let's not overcomplicate it. It's a scientific map of the stars and the energies. It's the most scientific thing you can have.
Mm.
It's scientifically mapping. Okay, this energy is going to come at this time. It's frequencies. That's all it is.
And now that we have all this technology, we can use satellites and real-time images of the planets to get the exact degree of everything and not just have to eyeball it.
Right. And so with that, we should also have way more advanced understandings of the spiritual currents that are coming from above. But, it's developing. So I do see it developing now. We have the Gregorian calendar, as you said, which is the Roman calendar, which is false. If you follow the Vedic astrology, which a lot of people still do, that still tends to have more accuracy. And, if you follow the lunar cycles instead of the solar calendar, that also has a lot more accuracy as well. So it's really quite interesting to see how things have been flipped. The Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church, has played a huge deception on humanity. And, there's all kinds of stuff about the Vatican and the archives that they contain, and all of the grimoires and magical books that they have, and all that, all of the different devices that they contain as well. So it's quite interesting to see.
The Vatican themselves use astrology and then turn around and demonize it so that their followers don't use it themselves. And
absolutely.
One of the most interesting aspects I think about where astrology is going to go in the future is, as we become multiplanetary, we're going to encounter new constellations, and those constellations are going to require satellite technology, just like what True Sidereal is doing here on Earth. And there's no reason to think that as we travel to other planets, we would use an astrology system based on Earth's seasons. It just wouldn't make sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that, if we're going to another realm, which other realms definitely exist, there's going to be a different location of the stars or the planetary bodies above. So obviously we would have to find a new mapping system, but that is the mapping system. It's like, okay, you're in the Earth's atmosphere. You're going to pretty much have the same constellations. I mean, they're rotating, of course, but you're not going to have too much variation. It's going to be the same. That's how you're in the same spot. That's how people have used the stars to travel for thousands of years. So the stars are a map, a compass, and they also provide signals of what's going on in the heavens or the higher realms, right?
Definitely, yeah. And so a lot of what I try to do in my business is use this understanding of the current astrology to map out events that are happening in 3D reality and help bring more clarity around them. And so just like this past year, 2020, we had Saturn squaring to Uranus. The Uranus was in Aries. It very much wanted to change right then and there. And that's why you saw so many protests that actually ended up destroying generational wealth and delineating from the actual point. And so much about astrology is tuning into the present moment so that we can utilize these energies further and just unveil the matrix one layer at a time.
Absolutely. There's so many layers to the matrix. That's the thing that you find out is when you start going down this rabbit hole. First of all, the old reality goes away completely. The physical reality, like, yes, it's still there, but it's not there because you see through it. You see how it's not what it was. You see how there's layers, and then you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into this abyss, into this level of consciousness. So it's really quite a journey, and astrology is definitely a part of it. And it's very interesting to see how there's so many elements there. That's the thing with my school that I've realized is there are so many topics to teach and to learn about that it's going to take a whole lifetime. So I'm going to have to hire some other teachers as well.
Definitely. And that's what I really appreciate about what you're doing is that you're bringing people along as you're learning it, and your passion for this learning is something that people can really get behind with their own desire to learn. And I resonate with that myself because this whole podcast is meant to understand the ideas that you're helping to build and bring an understanding to. And so once we can peel back the layers, once we can discover how these things work a little better, people will be able to see the truth of these tools and of the reality that is present, and start to co-create something that's much more magnificent than what's being imposed on us at the moment.
Yeah, I think that the absolute most amazing thing is that when you put out work on the internet or you put out work on YouTube or something, and you then communicate, whether it be through a call, like I also do coaching calls and stuff, or consultation, and somebody reaches out to me, or even just an email or just a comment or something, and they reach out to me and they're like, I did what you said, and I had a profound shift in my life. I had a profound consciousness shift. I had a shift in something that happened, whether it was financially or relationship wise or friendship wise, or just their sense of being, their energy, and they had a change. That's what makes it worth it for me, and I'm sure for you as well. Or when I, especially in my school, when I post out a meditation or I post out a video and people write back, they say, this profoundly shifted my life and my mindset. I can tell just from understanding these downloads, because now I'm seeing the world in a different way. We just broke a piece of the veil of the matrix off someone's consciousness.
Chipping away at it.
Exactly. Chipping away at it day by day by day.
Yep. Oh man. And so like, as we're sharing this knowledge with others, the most beautiful aspect of it is that a mind expanded to new ideas can never return to its old dimensions. And all of this work that we're doing is consistently just making a ripple out, and these ripples cause more ripples and more. And all it takes is showing up, deciding to put in the effort.
You can really see the ripples. Not in the beginning, maybe the first month or so, you're like, damn it, no one's watching.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's so much effort I'm putting in and no one's watching. That happened to me too. You just got to keep going. Take a break, you dust yourself off. Ripples, this is a law of the universe. It's like you put out energy and you keep compounding it. It's a law of the universe. It will compound, it will grow. No matter what it is, it will grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's the law of success. Recommend everyone check out Napoleon Hill's work on that. It's pretty powerful stuff. So it will always grow. Whatever you push out, if you're pushing out positive frequencies, especially, you will magnetically draw people towards you to benefit from the message, because every single messenger here has a unique understanding of the matrix and of the universe and of themselves and of energy and of consciousness and of spiritual wisdom. And so we have to honor each person because they have their own understanding. And so that's an important thing as well. That's why I really love my community aspect, because some of the people in there are extremely smart.
Yeah.
Really, really, really intelligent.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing I love about having this podcast, is being able to speak to other people who come from a different perspective, and we can co-create an idea together that helps just break one more piece of that matrix off. And earlier you were talking about all these skills, all these metaphysical, spiritual tools that we're able to use to influence this reality and understand this reality, grow ourselves. As we do all of this, it really just feels like more of a finding faith in ourselves. That as we grow bigger, we start attracting more people who want to, get a piece of that light. But at the same time, the light growing within us is faith in the light itself. And this just, compounds exponentially to the point where we just wake up every day, like smiling, excited to make a difference, and going out and doing it and loving the process.
Faith in yourself as the divine incarnate, and faith in the divine as a whole, and as the just faith in the sense that these crazy ideas and ramblings that you have inside your mind are not just crazy ramblings and ideas, but actual messages from the universal consciousness and your own higher self and your own, whatever words you want to use, it doesn't matter. Spirit, source, God, whatever, speaking to you to communicate something that needs to be shared. It goes from just being like a rambling to a knowing that this is a light that needs to be carried. It needs to be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
When I started having that shift, it happened internally. It happened first where I was feeling, but also was a lot of it was like the people's feedback helped me solidify what I was doing was legit, because you go into such a deep realm and you forget how far you've gone down into these realms, whereas everyone else is living a normal life. And then you remember, oh my God, I forgot this is not the way normal people live.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And so much of this reality, people get caught up in that fear mindset of how much entropy and natural destruction seems to be compounding, and all these narratives seem to exacerbate it and make it seem so much more present than it is. But the reality is that our creative potential and the fact that the universe is not settled, it is constantly in creation, means that through showing up, our intent to continue creating is much more powerful than any entropy could ever tear down.
Absolutely. Yeah. The universe, I know in science they tell you that the natural order of things is chaos. I would say that's bullshit, because you do not see a tree naturally falling apart. You see a tree growing upwards. You don't see the tree falling down and growing downwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this whole idea of gravity and all these ideas of things naturally decaying over time. But what we fail to see, because it's covered by veil, is that things actually naturally grow and flourish over time, right? Shocker.
Yeah.
Shocker that there might be a divine creator that's actually growing things and making things better and evolving them over time.
Yeah. And so much of like what you're saying, like that quote, that chaos is the natural order, that stems back to how much of our just the language we use to communicate ideas is rooted in deception. And there's so much language to unpack that once we learn how to master our words, master the spells of our words, and spell things differently to mean different things, we're able to break that programming and say, no, chaos is not the natural order. Creation is the natural order, and chaos is a ladder to more creation.
Chaos is necessary. All things have a balance within the universe. Chaos is definitely necessary. Creation is necessary. If you have too much creation, things get boring. If you have too much chaos, things get destructive. So there has to be a balance. Earth is that balancing plane. It's the balance between the spiritual and the physical. Right now, we've kind of tipped a little bit. We're tipping a little bit too much to the chaos. We might need to tip back to the creation, and stay there for a while until we get comfortable. And then maybe we want to go see some other planets or something. Then we can tip back into chaos. But we got to first balance ourselves. But the thing is, people got to realize, what you said about the spells is super important as well. Everything you say is a spell. All the words you say is a spell. So when you understand the language and you break it down, English in of itself is a bastardized language. It's very programmed. And think about who invented English or English, or this language that we speak. It's been taken from so many derivatives. It's been taken from Latin and all kinds of different other predecessors. The magic has been stripped. As you keep stripping these roots, you're stripping the power from the language. But here's the real thing to consider, is that they have to use all these programs on you, because you're so special and you have so much power that if you just weren't messed with 24/7 of your life, you'd be like a freaking nuclear bomb of energy. That's how much energy you contain.
And that's essentially what I would describe as the dark night of the soul, is when someone realizes that there is this growth, this potential available, and they're still struggling with the outside world trying to come at them and put all these programs on them, while they're in the belief of saying, no, I think there's something better, and I'm looking for it, I'm digging for it. And, this metaphorical rain isn't going to stop me.
That's when you take the time to realize and really understand what the word Maya actually is. Because when you see the separation between the internal and the external, which there is no true separation, but when you understand that I cannot necessarily control the circumstances outside of myself, but the circumstances inside of me, I definitely have control over. I definitely own this body. I definitely own what's happening inside. I definitely own my energy and my breath and my awareness. And if I can just, for one momentary second, get this back in order internally, I will notice that even though those same circumstances may be happening outside, it will not affect this internal, because really you're experiencing the world internally, not externally. It's all happening inside of you. So if you just take some time to get right with the internal, then the external, even if it's the world is on fire and everyone's wearing a mask and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to bother you as much. Sure, you might see it still as a problem, but that's just a greater problem to reflect the unconsciousness that's happening within so many of our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and that really speaks to the truth that the only things we can control is our intention and our attention. So that the things that we are invested our energy into, and the way we feel about the things that we're observing. And so a lot of this is, tying ourselves to the mast in terms of sacrificing from that comfort of just conforming to what everyone else is doing, and saying, I'm going to take the higher road. I'm going to choose to say what needs to be said, may not be very well liked, but it's going to end up making a difference that needs to be made.
Yeah, it is really about speaking from the heart and being authentic. And only in this world would you actually be somewhat strange for being yourself. That's the funny thing. I was thinking about this today, in the shower, actually. So it's funny you brought this up. Only in this world would you be actually weird, and people would actually dislike you for being yourself, whereas everybody else is being somebody else or pretending to be someone that they're told to be, they're liked.
Yeah.
But only in this world would you be disliked and be hated and be kind of like, you know, for just being who you are.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make any sense.
For those who are going to
Like,
change the world, they're going to face a lot of resistance, but that's just the people holding on to an old
yes.
world, or resisting the new version of self that could come about if they paid attention.
Right. This is actually happening all astrally. It's happening all interdimensionally. So there are literal thought constructs that humans have set up on what they can and can't do in society. So they can't fly, for example. They can die. They can't survive without food. They can get sick and get a heart disease. But this is all limitations that we have believed.
Mm-hmm.
See, we don't understand that we live in a holographic reality and that we actually are light beings that are non-physical, right? So because we have all these assumptions, because we had all these programs, we limited ourselves. And when somebody starts breaking those limitations, well, he's a heretic. Burn him at the stake. Right? Or shoot him down in a chopper.
That chopper story that you had told me, one time I was having a psychedelic ceremony with a few friends of mine, and we were camping in the middle of the mountains, and just a chopper showed up out of nowhere, and then it like floated above the water as if it was like observing us having our experience, and then it just dipped. And I was like, it must have felt very similar. It's just like they happen to show up right now. And just like you were saying earlier, there must be, they must have an awareness of all these shifting energies. And I think they do, because just like what you're saying, 2020, we all knew it was going to be big. We all knew something big was coming, an incremental shift that would incrementally, just like exponentially, forward move the growing consciousness. And I think everything that we've been seeing since 2020 in terms of the world changing through society and cultural norms has been a government resistance to this awareness that is, starting to become so apparent that it can't be denied anymore. And so everything we're seeing with CV and world economics and politics all seems to be wrapping around this idea to spread fear, to keep people locked down and not be noticing these shifts. Because the one thing everyone experienced during lockdown was more time to look inward, and they didn't really account for that part of it.
They didn't, but here's the thing. While you're sitting inside all day long, there's all kinds of interdimensional activity going outside your very window. If you just look and you keep your mind open, you will see it. It's there. It's everywhere. So when 2020 came and they said that there was going to be a shift, it was so much bigger than I think anyone anticipated. At least myself. I was like, oh yeah, another one of these nonsensical things that they keep talking about. No, it really did shift things. It really did change things quite a bit. And not just on a physical level, but on a metaphysical level.
Yeah, and this is huge now, that if people aren't paying attention to what's going on, it's going to show up at your doorstep eventually.
Yes. Something will happen to you where it will be so obvious that you just cannot ignore it, because the old reality is slowly fading. As you cling on to it, sure, it will stay there, but it will eventually fade away. Well, give it time. By the time you and I are both old and walking with a cane, if we even, unless we transcend that, which is very possible, I would say that it will be at the point of no return. So I've kind of like sensed the future, and I'm like, by 2030, this is 2020. By 2030, things are going to be really off the chain. And then 2040, that's when, like, these next 10, 20 years, that's when there's going to be a real spiritual renaissance. That's the way I'd put it.
Yeah, and the more people are opening up to the possibility of what the reality actually is and the nature of consciousness and light and energy, the more we're going to see a resistance at the same time. And so eventually we're going to reach a crescendo where it's just a mass realization and mass movement, just like what we're seeing, where like just this week we have France, Greece, and many other countries, Algeria as well, from different reasons, having massive protests, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and they're done with the oppression, and we're not going to take this anymore.
Yeah, they are. They're not. Handling it. They're not accepting the program anymore. So it's good that they're finally stepping up, and hopefully America will follow suit.
Right. Yeah, and so many of our ideas about what's going on have been politicized and bipolarized to create such a dynamic that nuanced conversation can't happen, to where people can just bring more understanding to complicated issues. But I'm glad that things are continuing to move forward, and conversations like what you and I are having here can be had, so that anyone listening and anyone having similar conversations can continue to bring awareness, because once that awareness is there, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, for anyone that's interested in the School of Mysticism, come check out the School of Mysticism. Come check out the Matrix Unveiled on YouTube. And we go into further depth in this kind of stuff. And my URLs, I'm sure you'll have them in the description as well. So come join us if you want to learn more about this info. But I want to say something about what you just mentioned. Is that I just had to throw that in there that way, in case you're listening to a conversation, you're like, wait, they never plugged it, they never said where to go. So for the audience, this whole the agenda, there is a very, very, very specific thing that they are doing and why they're pushing it so hard. And it has to do with tracking. This is what I've uncovered in my own research. It has to do with tracking. So they track all of the individualized units. This is like a SIM card almost. So each one is registered. It's a registered number, and you get this SIM card basically, and it's a nanotechnology SIM card that goes into your body once you take it. And now it's registered. You're registered on the network, and this frequency is now communicating through lo-fi, through Wi-Fi, through 5G, and through radio signals. So you are now tracked on the grid everywhere you go. Now, this has been documented. They have patents for this, because they have to have a patent for all technology. They're not allowed to technically use public technology without a patent. So they put out the patents in different companies' names. Okay, one of the patents is under Microsoft. We obviously know what Microsoft is doing.
Isn't that patent number 666 as well?
It's patent number 666. It's literally the mark of the beast. You can't get any more literal than that.
Like, it's not just a coincidence. Like, these things are intentional. Or whether it's a psyop,
it's exactly intentional
to scare people, or it's deliberately intentional and they're just like, oh, let's put it in front of their face. They still won't do anything about it.
They have to somehow release it as part of like their agreement, their sole agreements is like, we have to share this info. We have to tell them what's going on without telling them exactly what's going on. Like, and that way it takes away some of their energetic liability, I guess you could say, but I'm not really too sure about that. I do know that this is what's happening. I do know that if you get the thing, you're registered on their grid. Not just your phone, not your technology, your actual physical body is now registered on their grid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much of everything that's going on with this does seem to be a method of control. And just like any time people are sharing experiences about talking to angels or demons or higher dimensional beings, any sort of interaction with any being, whether physical or metaphysical, requires consent. Just like, think of a vampire, for example. They need to be let into your house. Anything to do with this vaccine still requires consent. Anything to do with what's going on in the world. If we decide that we would rather take a different approach, that is our collective decision. And so anyone who's maybe in fear about any of this that might be going on, or maybe have been contacted by spirits or angels or demons or something, there's a very powerful technique known as shifting, where you shift your attention to something that you do want to be focusing on, and you reject the connection to that being because it isn't something that you want to connect to, and it does need your permission. No matter how big and strong and scary that being might feel, it does require your permission to connect with you. And the more you give it attention, the more it is connecting to you.
Yes, this is very true. Whether it be the government or whether it be non-physical entities, that's another huge topic, just spirit protection and working with entities. But yeah, you are a sovereign creator. We all have our own auric fields for a reason, and that's like our own personal universe. You carry your universe with you everywhere you go. It's 24/7 around you. You have to let something in the door if you want to play with it. It can only scare you into saying yes. It's like, why do you got to scare me if you can't just come in? Well, because they have to let you say yes.
They have to
to say yes
if they want that consent.
Right. Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here today on IllumiNation Network and sharing your light with us. If for anyone interested in learning more about some of these skills, tools, and techniques, you can find Tanuj and his School of Mysticism, as well as the Matrix Unveiled YouTube page, all of that in the links, descriptions, and please comments, like, subscribe. This helps us get seen in the algorithm. Any visibility helps. And so thank you all for listening. And thanks again, Tanuj, for coming to share your light with us here on IllumiNation Network.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was a great conversation, and I really appreciate being here. And yeah, it was a great conversation. I'm excited to see what people are saying. I'll definitely be sharing the video. So thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Take care, everyone.